Welcome, Carolyn. Thank you for co-hosting. It's easy enough, just really help out with the chat because I can't read everything while I'm listening to people talk and stuff. So if you can kind of keep an eye on if there's anything worth bringing to the larger group in the chat, or if there's a lull in conversation, give me like kind of an Andy Richter, Ed McMahon kind of moment where you just laugh at whatever I say and you are correct, sir. Just give me something like
good
that.
One.
I just need some positive reinforcement to keep everyone going here. So, but it is 7 o'clock and I like to be on time and I don't like to waste your time. So although some of you might think you wasted your time reading this book, I don't know. We'll find out. I'm not calling it yet. Very excited to find out. Tonight's book is The Chain by Adrian McKinty. I have placed a little bit about the author in the chat. I will do it again because most of you weren't here yet for that. First is a How to Books and Bars book chat, which I just put in the chat. And now here's a link to a little bit about the author. And I will also include his bio. So as for me, my bio, hopefully you know me. I'm Jeff Kamen. This is Books and Bars. Hopefully you read tonight's book, but it's okay if you haven't, or if you didn't finish it. If you have something to say, I would love to hear from you. Don't be afraid to raise your participant hand. I will call on you, unmute you, ask you to unmute yourself, and just go for it. And don't be afraid to disagree with anybody. In fact, those are usually the better conversations anyway. So let's have some fun tonight, and let's not take it too seriously. I think this book maybe wasn't as serious as I was led to believe myself. I don't usually give my opinions too much up top. I will say I had a really fun time reading this, and I ended up laughing more than I thought I would. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but hey, I had a good time reading it. And really as for an icebreaker tonight, I would love to know, especially from anyone with a child, how far would you go? Would you kidnap someone else's kid? What would you do if somebody kidnapped your kid? I mean, think about it. I do think this book's premise is pretty brilliant. I think it's on, just the log line, if we're doing a movie here of this book, it sells instantly. It's no wonder that this author was ready to give it all up. He was an Uber driver. He thought he was done with writing. And he basically, announced that it's it. Like, I can't do this anymore. I gotta feed my family. And, got in touch with the right person. And this pitch alone is what got this to be, mega seller. And it's going to be turned into a movie soon. The rights have already been bought. So, but what's more important is what you guys thought about it. So does anyone want to kick us off tonight to tell us what they thought of the book? You can tell us, what you would do, how far you would go for a child of your own. You can tell us what you'd give the book on Goodreads, anything that you want to start with tonight. I see the husband of the co-host tonight, Pete O'Grady, and I can't see him through the wall, but I can see him on my screen with his hand up. So Pete, I'm lowering your hand. I'm calling on you. Talk to us, Pete.
Yeah, I can. I was, I thought I'd start because I was slamming this last Books and Bars. So
you were, and I used you in our promotional material to say, and I don't believe I misquoted you.
No, you were.
You gotta read this book and come talk about it, Pete O'Grady.
Yeah, no, I did, and I'm really looking forward to. I'm excited to see that Sue and Donna are here. And
so tell us why you said that, Pete. Why you said we have to read this book and talk about it.
Well, and I noticed some others liked it too. I liked the fast plot drive books, and I get that's a thing. And I get beach books and stuff that don't think too hard. Don't worry about how realistic something is or isn't. But what's so funny about this, this poor author should be banned from writing about. He shouldn't write women. He really. I want it feels certain like he's never known a cancer survivor, and there's so much fun to rip into this. But with that said, it's a fast read. It was enjoyable, but the there's so much to go into. Like the sex scene was just sheer comedy. With Rachel and Peter. Like what's that's a that's some dude's fantasy there, right? It's like, isn't that all over the internet? But uh, uh, yeah, there was, uh, and an interesting question that will follow up from this, but I'll answer the thing, how far I'd go for my kid. Um, the, uh, the, who, who was uh, the character you like the most in the story? Because I find that's challenging. That's a real treasure Easter egg hunt question. And then the but the thing about the premise is so unbelievable. Um, I have so many friends in law enforcement or near law enforcement that I would reach out to privately. Like this is a Carolyn thing. It's like, pick up one of those burner phones and just call 911 or something. And then have a secret meet with somebody and get things going that way. But so the answer to your question is that's what I do. I'd pretend to string them along, but I, I would never kidnap. It's not for lack of love of my own child. I'm not going to go torture some other family to make my tragic situation better. So, my 2 cents.
All right, Pete. Well, I hate to tell you, they just decided you just lost your child because of that decision. So now what do you do?
I'd get mad, then I'd go find Pete and go kill him.
All right. Thank you, Pete. Thanks for kicking it off, buddy. Dr. Todd is in the house. May I unmute you? Talk to us, Todd.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm well, thanks. I thought Pete was most gracious and, in my mind, overly gracious. I thought the whole thing kind of sucked. It was good up until about halfway, and maybe 1/3, and I could almost buy it. And he had almost a thread of a story, and it's like you should have just stopped, or tapered it off somehow. The moment you took a cancer surviving woman, and I know not only surviving but currently in the midst of chemotherapy, through the swamplands of Massachusetts, which I have seen and lived in, totally unrealistic. And that feeling the need to go after vengeance was totally unrealistic. And the ending was just bad. It just did not match the first. Two different people could have written the thing, because the back end of it was so predictable. You knew what was going to happen. It was a really trashy, campy story, and it's like, you know what? You're on a schedule now. You got to get this out. But the first third, I thought you almost had it, and then it went to a 2 on a good day.
Fair enough, Todd. And I think most of us would agree probably that there, it does seem like two very distinct halves to this book and two different styles. And whether you liked one or the other, we'll find out from some others. But I appreciate you taking the time and sharing your thoughts. And we'll see. I bet there'll be some that agree with you. Maybe Gretchen. Gretchen, may I unmute you? Talk to us.
Yeah. I could not understand why there was the cancer storyline at all. That seemed to be not really relevant to the story. It wasn't really that wasn't even a part of the first third, maybe half of the book. And additionally, it was just so, I don't know, from my perspective, factually inaccurate.
Yeah.
Really factually inaccurate. And that, I just thought that it had no place in the story, and it didn't add anything, and in fact, it detracted from me. So I thought it was particularly interesting that at the end she, might be pregnant. Yeah, she's not gonna be pregnant. Trust me. Nobody who's been through chemotherapy, like breast cancer, is going to be pregnant unless they froze their eggs and used IVF, because it just doesn't happen that way. So, and I felt like, the premise started out as potentially interesting, and then, kind of figured it out pretty early on, and then it just kept going, and I'm like, how much more of this do we need to have? And I don't know. There was just a lot of it that I felt like was just stupid fluff that didn't need to be in there. The romance part, just there was just it had potential as an idea, and it just fell flat.
I hear you. For me, I read it so quickly. Like I couldn't put it down. Like I think I read it in a day. It was one long day, but it was like, all right, I'm gonna power through this, because it kept getting a little more ridiculous. And yeah, the ending was really, I mean, the more stuff that got added in there, it was pretty crazy. But I guess I just started laughing because I really thought, and then I thought, is the joke on me? Was it supposed to be kind of funny the whole time? And is it really not that serious of, it's like one of these more like an action comedy kind of thing, where it's not that serious, because it sounds like such a dark premise, such a serious thing. And then it just, I don't know, the way it was handled. I don't know. Did anyone else laugh? I just started laughing, and me, I don't know. Was that wrong? But yeah, what's one of the questions is, are we actually supposed to believe she's pregnant at the end? I mean, I think that's, dangling for the sequel or something. I mean, just throw that in there too, which, yeah, adds to the further unreality of it all, perhaps. But I see Allie has her hand up. Allie, what can you tell us?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I wanted to get into it. I liked, at first, I thought it like came out the gate so strong, and I was like, I like kind of a good kind of thriller situation. This is going to be such a fun kind of read. And it was so absurd, and it felt a little bit to me like it's like a grad school thought experiment, where it was just kind of this kind of situation, and then we were supposed to think, but it like wasn't making me think, and I just had a hard time kind of keeping going again once I got to that midpoint where it kind of switched. I just didn't want, like, what? No, don't tell me any more about these weirdos. I don't know what's going on. Like, and I was also really surprised how early the daughter made her reappearance. That surprised me, because I thought they would really keep us going and like trying to find her daughter would just be this huge thing, and then it's like, oh, she's back, she's got all these issues, but no one can tell anyone, and I don't know. And the whole relationship part made me feel icky. I don't know, wasn't for me, but I appreciate getting out of my comfort zone. I have a 1-year-old, so it certainly was like something as I was describing the plot to my husband, he was like, what? And it sounded like so dark and ominous, like it's really going to give me a lot of fodder for thinking about parenthood, and that wasn't my experience. So
I like what you said about it feeling a little bit like a thought experiment, kind of like the trolley situation, or like or like a philosophical question like the ship of Theseus that we just saw in WandaVision, or something where it's like, what would you do? Like, this is the scenario, and then when it's, and that's great. But then, when you find out what the person ends up doing and how it's executed, it might not be quite in line with what you were hoping for.
Yeah, and it could have gotten me there if it had if the story had drawn me in a bit more, but it just couldn't quite get past that setup.
Yeah, I do think that he is probably going to be a successful author in the realm of these sort of, you know, not really thinking person's thrillers, but just like plot. I mean, you know, any words that weren't about plot maybe weren't as well written, but moving a plot forward, you know, he definitely has something there. As far as, I mean, it was very readable in a way. Some of it might, you know, the dialogue and some of the characters might not have been as strong, but I do feel he'll probably be successful in writing really plot driven situations like this, you know, just like he'll come up with another, like, you know, like, imagine what if this happened, then what would you do, sort of thing. And it's like, oh, okay, you know, and maybe more people read it. Maybe people like us won't. I don't know. Let's see what Will thinks about it. Will, may I unmute you? Talk to us, Will.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it for, I think, what it was. It kind of had the feeling of like a John Wick or like a Guy Ritchie film. And, you know, I think the action and plot were definitely there and exciting and stylized. And as long as you don't pause or think about anything that's actually happening too much, it kind of flies by. I personally have been reading a couple of like more literary books, and like The Stars and the Blackness Between Us was really dense with poetry and stuff. So it was nice to have an easy breezy read. And I think some people have been calling out the cancer and the addiction parts in chat. I don't have experience with those, but as someone with a little bit of experience in cybersecurity, I feel like the whole IT part of the chain reads like he watched a couple of YouTube videos on cybersecurity. You know, I haven't heard anyone talk about a Tor browser in a very long time. And then the other thing that really stuck out to me like that was I felt like social media stuff was just plugged in because that's what the youths are into, and they needed to, you know, an editor told them he needed to connect to them, but I didn't think it added any value or brought, you know, was there to reflect it all. It's just like, you got to mention Snapchat because that's where the kids are at.
All right. Thanks, Will. Let's see. Tony's got his hand up. Tony, may I unmute you? Tell us what you thought.
I think Dr. Todd was right on with trashy and campy, and that was just totally up my alley this month. And Jeff, you said read it fast. I think the slowest I listened to it was at 1.75 speed.
Nice.
So it was just coming at me fast. Like, and the plot made, you know, did I miss some details? Yeah, for sure. But also, this book was not about details for me. You know, when I hear people say about cancer, I'm like, oh yeah, you're probably right about that. And some of the other things, but I was just like, whatever, I'm good, I'm in. You know, I need to finish this in a week or however long I gave myself, you know, which was not enough time. But yeah, I just did not hate that book. That was fun. And
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, I think I would do very bad things in that situation. I don't feel like one of the good people in this group. I'm like, ooh, no, I'm probably, you know, so really happy there's not a chain.
All right, everybody, stay away from Tony's kids. Don't anyone mess with Tony's kids.
That's probably fair.
And, yeah, and Tony can listen to things as fast as I can. I like that. That's very exciting. All right, thanks, Tony. Tell us about your background. Are you in? I know it's virtual, but is there a story?
There is not. That's one of the. Sorry, yeah, not exciting. WandaVision's amazing though.
Yes, WandaVision is amazing. Have fun amongst the weeping willows. All right, Tony, maybe we'll hear from you again tonight. Let's see. We got Rebecca Moss. Talk to us, Rebecca.
Hello.
Hi.
I am also seems to be in the minority. I thought this book was a thrilling ride. I did not care about it being, I don't know, sensitive or accurate or whatever. It was pure emotion. It was pure pulling on my inner id. Of course, I would protect my kids if I had them. I was kind of thrilled to see two women put against each other. One woman not backing down, not willing to, what's the word? I don't know, do the smart thing necessarily or whatever. She was not going to be dissuaded, and in the end she triumphed, and that was good enough for me this week. And I appreciated it. I'm glad I didn't have to spend all my time analyzing whether, the ethical issues. It was obviously not that kind of book to me, so I didn't worry about it. And I really appreciated I think I read it in about 3 hours, just sat down and read it, and I liked it. So I appreciated that kind of a book every once in a while coming up here. So that's all I got to say.
Awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, I mean, some of you remember I used to try to find something that maybe wasn't traditional book club fare, or I should say traditional books and bars club fare, which maybe wasn't as heavy or had a serious topic or issue, but was just like a thriller or a romp. And we were doing them in January to lighten things up for a while, because January's in Minnesota can be pretty brutal. But I think, this was kind of like one of those picks. Maybe they go better in the summer or at the beach, but yeah, if you got something fun from it, I'm glad you did. And Rebecca, when you talk about two women and neither of them backing down, did you, in your 3 hours, were you able to figure it out a little sooner?
As soon as the new girl, as soon as the evil one said she liked the way the brother looked, I knew that was going to happen. And so as soon as he introduced his new girlfriend, it was all over for me. But that was okay, because within a couple of chapters, he threw that out. I mean, he wasn't trying to hide it. And then it became, one woman trying to find that other woman. And, even though the evil woman seemed to have all of the smarts, she was flawed in the emotional part. And the other woman had all the emotional flaws you'd think with cancer and the stress about her child or whatever, but she ended up persevering and following through and taking the risks and committing herself. And I thought that was pretty cool too.
Great. Thanks, Rebecca. I see Sue has her hand up. Sue, may I unmute you? Tell us what you thought.
Hey, Rebecca and I didn't read it in 3 hours, but I absolutely gulped it down. And I actually was a little afraid of this one from our conversation last time. So I started it thinking, oh, I'm probably not going to like this one. And it did take me the first maybe 100 pages, and then I was in for it. I will say though, the ending where she thinks she might be pregnant, as someone who's worked in healthcare all my career, yeah, I had the same feeling. That's not very plausible. But other than that, I think I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. I just gulped it down. It was good romp. Yeah, everything everyone is saying about credibility, I get it, but sometimes I need brain candy in this fit.
Excellent. It's interesting to hear that maybe the people that have liked it a little bit more so far did it very quickly, whether it was 3 hours or a day, myself included, really just tore through it. Interested if anyone can beat 3 hours. First of all, that's our record. Sometimes we applaud people for saying I've read it twice, or before the discussion, or as an English major, comma, and then they make their comment. But today's slow clap getter is how fast did you read it? Did you read it in a day or 3 hours or less? Let's hear it. And I would love to hear if someone did read it really fast and still really didn't like it, or vice versa, or someone who took a longer time to read it and still liked it. Whatever you got. I see Donna's got her hand up. So Donna, I'm calling on you.
Oh, hi everyone. I found this book really cinematic, and I guess he has sold the movie rights. I mean, I guess it's one of those stories of there's just enough description, enough dialogue, really almost like a freight train going on the track in terms of the plot and the ending. so many, short sentences, this all happened, and then the gun is here, and then there's this gun, and so that was all kind of exciting. And I guess with Rebecca, it was just kind of a romp to read, and I liked that part of it quite a bit, and I found Rachel a pretty interesting person. I was impressed that Kylie was so brave and so crafty, and her whole thinking what she was going to do with that wrench and all that kind of stuff. And she was really brave for a kid. And somebody mentioned about the cancer and about the addiction and stuff. And I will say that when I was reading this, it kind of reminded me a little bit of my little sister who died of cancer a few years ago. And I remember there was a point at which she was just fierce about living life and about being with her kids and all this kind of stuff. And there's a part in the book where Rachel even is kind of reflecting on how the chain, as horrible as it is, has given her a purpose and made her really think about what's important in life. And so I think that there was, the cancer thing maybe was not treated as realistically in some ways as it could have been, but at the same time, I think it was an important piece of Rachel to kind of let us know how she had really channeled this, because of this situation, was able to kind of forget about her thinking ahead about dying and so on into something that really was life affirming and took all of her mettle to tackle. And then I think too that was also true of the addiction with Pete, and that, we saw how he was really struggling with that. But boy, that last scene where he was really racked and needing another fix, but boy, he made it through that final scene. And I think there's sort of a kind of a message here about when you really get your adrenaline going and you really have a need, that people can kind of rise to the occasion and get through it. So that part I did kind of, I didn't read it in 3 hours, but it was a quick read, and I actually pummeled right through it and thought it was worth reading. So that's my
Great.
point.
Well, thank you, Donna, and thanks for sharing your personal experience and how it connects to it. I see that Lisa has her hand up, so I'm going to go to Lisa. Talk to us.
Hey guys. So I really liked it. I read it quick too, and I thought, I guess I was just having fun with it because of the moral dilemma that makes you think of what you would do and how you would handle all these things. And I liked that it made me think about just the good versus evil part of this. Like, are you a evil person because you're doing this? Because you're sacrificing yourself that you could get imprisoned because you're trying to save your child. And Pete was in the military and was killing people in war, right? And then how was that different than him killing to save his family and the necessity of that? And so I felt like there was a lot of stuff that was going on that was making me think about it. And I appreciated that he was bringing those things up, and I didn't get caught up in all of the other stuff, which now that you're saying it, I'm like, yeah, that was totally stupid, the pregnancy and cancer stuff. But Donna's stuff with cancer, I put on my notes too. I'm like, what's the storyline benefit of the cancer? But I think that she might be right that added a little bit to her character's willpower and how that changed her perseverance of making sure she was going to save her kid. The other thing is just that I thought he was pretty creative in just like having all these little chain references around about the chain on the front, where I was thinking about kids getting kidnapped, and then the chain in the basement where they were chaining the kids in the basement, and the chain of there was some comments about that, about what the chain thing is and what really is it forcing you to do. What is your life revolving around? And the heroin I thought with Pete was one of his things, doing the heroin and having the addiction. Addiction can be a chain to people. So I don't know, read a lot more into it, but I felt like there was a lot of stuff going on that made me think about it. So I did give it 4 stars. on Goodreads.
Awesome, thanks, Lisa. I do see one of your comments in the chat that I wonder if, while I have you, if I could say it out loud and you could answer to it. You said that you work in criminal justice and with criminals, and you would never call the police, but kidnap away. Is this unofficial legal advice from you to kidnap away? I love this. I have this imprint. And then you said, oddly, my husband said he would call police right away because he's a dad. Only moms go to the wall for the kids. Tell us.
So we had a little dispute about that, because he said, well, what would you do? And I'm like, kidnap, pay the money, get going, and I think that because I work with criminals, and there are very few criminals that are really psychopathic bad. I mean, out of thousands that I've worked with, I have like 5 that really scare the crap out of me. But those 5 people, I could totally see them doing stuff like this, and they're just evil and they're nasty. And I guess I took that as, this is like an amazingly evil thing to do to people. And people that would do that would obviously just go to the wall and kill and keep doing it. And you would not be able to get out of it if someone was that determined to keep this process going. And so I'm like, I wouldn't mess around with them, because it's just that serious, And
Okay.
Andrew just thought, yeah, he's like, well, of course you just call the police. You just call the police and they would find them. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know
All
if
right,
that would happen.
I like your unofficial legal advice. I mean, I'm probably putting more of a disclaimer on it than you are right now. You typed it up. Your name's attached to it. I love it.
I'm telling you, I would kidnap
All
away.
right.
That's it. I would.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing. I see Angela has her hand up. Angela, talk to us.
Hi. I started the book and I messaged Kay, I'm like, this is going to be a super easy read. It sucked me in right away, gets you going. I would agree that I don't overanalyze books. I read them for fun. And so I appreciate all the call outs of like, this seems unrealistic and all that, but I'm also very good at checking my reality and being like, sometimes you just have to suspend your reality and go with it. Right. And I thought it was really enjoyable. I think that there were a lot of intentional put in. So social media, how much do you post and things like that. So I think that was intentionally thrown in to say, hey, watch how much you put out there about your personal life and whether you take it or not, right? So I think it was all these very candid messages. And I think as a couple of people called out, yeah, was the whole cancer thing done maybe not the best way, but I would agree it was to show perseverance, whether it was done right or wrong. I do think that was the intention. A couple people in the chat, or I saw in the chat that there were people talking about what was the point of the heroin addiction. And again, it was something, how do you overcome something when something major in your life is happening, and how do you deal with that? And sometimes you don't, and sometimes you find a way to. So I think there was a lot of basic softballs thrown about, this is how you deal with things in life. And they were metaphors and stuff like that versus trying to make it as realistic as possible. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was just a fun story to read, but a little disturbing because I could actually see this happening in the world, and that's terrifying.
Yeah, I definitely, when you talk about how easy it was to find the next person for the chain based on what they put out there, and what the kids are putting out there, and how easy it is to know things about people, because of what they're sharing willingly, on social media. But yeah, I like that you describe yourself as someone who doesn't analyze the book too much, yet you come to this book club like twice a month, and you put up with analysts, and yet you still have things to say, and you still have important insights and perspectives, even if you say you're not, digging deep. So thank you, and I love it. Donna's back with a hand. So Donna, talk to us.
Oh yeah, I just have a question. I know there were some things, like I thought the fact that this chain had been going on for years, and yet somehow the big finale took place at a house that was almost in their backyard. I mean, to have all that with the ex-husband involved, and all that was just so over the top coincidental in a way. But the other thing I was wondering about is, for those of you that have experience with IT, is I think, well, if I had to kidnap somebody in my neighborhood or somewhere, could I really find out that much about a child in living somewhere? I mean, is that, given there's a lot of security and hacking concerns going on right now, of course, and there are even more today in the news, but is that even possible? I mean, how were they able to monitor all the activity going on in the house of it was originally a boy, and then they took the sister instead because there was kind of a screw up there. But, I mean, all the activity, whether they were on the phone or posting on Facebook or it seemed like they were almost like able to eavesdrop on every single thing. I mean, is that possible? Those of you that, have experience in IT, is that really possible? Oh,
I would
see
love to hear.
Lisa
I
nodding.
am not. Do we have someone? Pete, can you speak to that?
I can.
Okay.
And I am in IT. The camera hack you hear about all the time. It's a lot more difficult than it is in popular culture. You need to know a lot about the very machine and passwords that you're attacking there in order to get that. And I'd see it as extremely unlikely that, especially the characters in this book. However, the other stuff, the social media stuff, that's kind of scare popular culture stuff. In order to, sure, you can learn a lot about people, but whenever you show up in a neighborhood, the neighborhood itself learns a lot about you. So they covered it lightly in the book, but I find these kidnapping scenarios extremely implausible relative to the volume of them. I mean, the entire state of Massachusetts, it's like 2/3 of the families are in the chain by the time we're reading the book. And I would not expect it to be able to go that far, but with all that said, it was a good romp still. So I wanted to answer Donna's question, but Jeff, I laughed a lot at this. This was good. I wanted Kara's snark because I thought she would really rip it to shreds.
Yeah, I
didn't want to torture her.
you gave her permission to be like, oh, I picked a good week to not go when she heard what you said. But maybe we could still get some of her snark sometime down the line. Maybe she'll watch the video and then I'll have her comment on it. How about that?
Yeah.
So.
But one thing I put in the chat that would be fun to address, because a lot of smart people here, the Joseph Campbell hero journey. I really laughed out loud when they were in that gunfight at the end, and then she, I was like, how isn't she supposed to fight her hand to hand? And then they get in that discussion where she puts her weapon down and goes and faces her directly and shoves the piece of glass in her throat or whatever. I was just like, oh man, you really crowbarred that one in. Funny stuff for classics, folks.
More fun stuff.
Yeah.
So Carolyn, as your first time as co-host, I got to tell you, this is a rare sort of evening where doesn't it seem like everybody is like, oh, by the way, in the chat, everyone's doing your job for you tonight, Carolyn. But I want to give you a chance. I want to give you a chance. So, I mean, you don't have to, obviously, you could say whatever now because you can't raise your hand. And this is your first time co-hosting, and I'm happy to have you. So what do you think so far? We're about halfway through. What's
well,
going
let's
on
see. We got Joseph Campbell, a check. The heroine side, no check. Goodreads, a lot of people, talked about what they gave it on Goodreads. But my take on it, and this has been kind of fun because I love a good page turner. I mean, I love, there are just so many page turners that I really enjoy. I don't have to think about things. This was not one of them. And I don't know, I mean, I think it's because maybe they're like the cancer thing really fell flat. I have not been through a divorce, but I cannot imagine having like the divorced woman being like, he's so great. You know, he left me when I was getting treated for cancer. Now he's got young girlfriends. You are great. So it just fell so flat for me. And so I had to laugh. Having said that, we've talked, or at least I've seen in chat about like other books like The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I mean, we've talked about maybe doing that one. And I loved that book. It's the same thing. It's every single chapter is the proverbial gun on the mantle, like, uh-oh, you could fall from here, dun, 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 or, and then like another one I read recently was One by One, Ruth Ware. I don't know, classic, crazy setups. So I don't know. I mean, I think this book probably falls in that category. I just didn't like it. And, I think it's personal. I don't know why, but.
Okay. So The Guest List, you cite as a good example of this,
I liked
this
it.
type of book. Okay. And I would love to hear from others if you like this or don't like this one, but you want something that gives you that feeling. Is there a better version out there that we could read? Send me that suggestion. The Guest List we were talking about. One by One. Do you know the author offhand? I feel like
Ruth Ware. Ruth Ware. She's written a bunch of those.
Yeah, she's written like The Lying Game and The Cabin Number 10 in the Woods or
Woman
something.
and whatever.
Yeah, a whole bunch of ones that are probably really fun and good. Yeah, okay. Okay, and I started something in the chat that I kind of thrown out an informal poll. I've been talking to some of you. I am currently scouting locations. This is sort of like a timeout break, and I'm gonna, pull back from this book for a second at the halfway point here. I feel like it's getting close. I'm not going to push it. I'm not going to be unsafe, and I completely understand anyone that doesn't want to meet in person yet. I myself am still very cautious. That said, I am not talking about taking away the Zoom from anyone. What will probably be difficult would to do it at the same time. So I would do it 2 times a month. I would do one in person and one Zoom, and you can pick. Obviously, if you're not local to Minnesota, you probably have to settle for the Zoom unless you want to visit sometime, or unless I road trip again. We'll see. So, someday we're taking this thing on the road. We're franchising. But I am looking in warmer weather. So I'm talking about the summer, and I'm talking about trying to do this outside and still make it work with the sound. So I think if I can make it as safe as possible. Now, granted, I don't know how many people will be up for it, and also how many people realistically will fit in new kind of capacity settings like that. But I'm looking at new locations. And to anyone, I gave Moon Palace the benefit, or the first right of refusal. I had a great talk with them finally the other day, and we're not on the same timeline, which is fine. And they, if you want to know, they're not doing anything until after this Derek Chauvin trial, just so you know. So they're waiting to see everything that goes down. They were right in the thick of everything. So that said, we left it with when it's right for Moon Palace and it's right for Books and Bars, Moon Palace and Books and Bars will be together again. It will happen, but it might not be anytime soon. And I think there will be other live events, in-person events, I should say, before Moon Palace is ready to welcome us back, or to have any events at all from my discussion with Jamie. So that said, we have their blessing, and he hopes we return. And I said, we plan on it. I said it'll be a triumphant return, like a Return of the Jedi, if you will, because of course I made a Star Wars reference. So, and he liked it too. So anyway, but I'm throwing it out there. I'm trying to do this outside. I'm trying to do this with, but I'm wondering, how many people are we really going to get? We've split these videos now, and we're averaging, like maybe 25 some people in each video. Last time, or the time before, we had closer to 40, but tonight we started at 27. We're at 25 right now. I'm telling venues, I'm thinking we might have 30 people in person. Maybe I'm way off, and everyone's going to be like, I can't wait to get back, and they're going to jump back into it. And that might happen, but then I'm going to have to say, whatever actually fits safely in the space. And then if you don't make it in next week, we're going to Zoom. You know what I mean? That if you really want to go, maybe it'll have to be a reservation or something like that. But I'm looking at places right now. I've talked to you about some of it, meeting currently. So just so you know, that's on the horizon. I'm thinking realistically June, would be the earliest. There's a chance I might get a late May one in there if weather and numbers and everything looks good. I myself have not eaten inside a restaurant yet, or hung out in a bar. I've only been outside and doing takeout and stuff like that. So I've been very cautious. Fortunately, more and more of my older relatives are getting vaccinated, but I'm not soon on the list. As old as you think I am, I'm not that soon on a list to get vaccinated. So I still have to wait. But anyway, so thanks for letting me vent that. If you want to send me more ideas or tell me your thoughts on it, feel free to put it in the chat or email me at booksandbars@gmail.com. I'd love to hear it. So I'm going to go back to Pete now, who's got his hand up. I just want to make sure, Carolyn, anything else as a co-host that you wanted to say at this point?
No, I mean, just that I would love to meet back in person. And I really think that a reservation system would be ideal because, you could get 5 people or you could get 50 because everyone's so excited to see each other again. So that would have to be a part of it.
All right. Well, Carolyn, you're doing a great job so far. Now I'm going to look through the wall with my X-ray vision and go to Pete. Pete.
Hey, yeah, as far as the gathering stuff too, talk to me offline. We can see if we can set up a Zoom with a live audience stuff.
Okay.
That's probably doable. And then things, but we haven't talked about who the favorite character was. And what was Kaylee's friend? What was his name? Do you remember?
Stuart.
Wait.
Yeah. So the O'Grady family voted that Stuart was the best character in the book.
Okay. Anyone else anyone else like Stuart or have another character that you liked? I mean, it's hard to dislike, the kidnapped kid. I mean, right?
Well, Kaylee bonking him on the head was as fun as that was, and then the gun filled with blanks, and then. But I did enjoy his discussion that it's like, well, my wife hates me. She'll kind of gladly let you shoot me, and but then the bit of like that she was struggling and suffering, and then at the big shootout at the end, Kaylee blows the head off Mushroom, and then suddenly that's the best therapy, that she's just fine. Oh no, Kaylee's bouncing back just great. But it was funny. I laughed and laughed. So
here's the thing. I don't know if this is still true or not, but I had heard that the director who was interested and attached to this was Edgar Wright. And if you know Edgar Wright's stuff, this will be a very funny movie. He's made some excellent, really funny movies. His latest does have a little more of that action thriller, but it's still funny, Baby Driver. But he did Hot Fuzz. He did Shaun of the Dead. I mean, did at World's End, where they pub crawl and
that was great.
For you, but it's great. I love Edgar Wright's movies. I mean, he's fantastic. And so I think he maybe saw something that has an interesting take on it. There's no way it's not going to be over the top, entertaining fun if Edgar Wright is actually going to be the director of it, which is what I had initially read. I'm not sure if that is still true. If anyone else has read something else, let me know.
If it's Edgar Wright, that would be awesome because it is so funny. And and that's what this story needs. It needs a real comic polish on it.
Yeah.
And
I see. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm holding someone else up. Go ahead.
No, that's right. Will, talk to us, Will.
I really liked Mushroom. He was my favorite character. Like, he seemed to be like just a good businessman, just trying to build his house out in San Francisco. And he's like, oh man, my sister's got to really stop mixing this personal stuff. So I felt kind of bad for him at the end. He seemed to have like an escape hatch and he was ready to just move on to the next phase of his life. And Ginger kind of messed everything up for him.
Anyone else have another character that they like and want to throw out there? Anyone else have something that we haven't touched on yet that you really want to bring up? Have I 3 hours going once? Anyone read it faster? 3 hours going twice? Anyone listen to it faster than 1.75 times going once 1.75 times going twice. Actually, Tony, I do think I was listening to it maybe the second half about that speed too. I was just killing it that day. It was great. I was amped up. Carol,
One thing that people had asked in the chat was the hippie themes. Do we want to talk about the what that was all about, the background in the hippie commune?
yeah, what do you think? I mean, throw in a commune, I'm instantly even more interested. I mean, that's just my jam. I mean,
Did you read Arcadia, Jeff, by the way?
I did. We may have
Okay.
read that for Books and Bars. I
Yeah, we
think we
did.
did read it for Books and Bars. I mean, when was that? Like 12 years ago now? I mean, that was a long time ago, wasn't it? So yeah, I mean, I have to look back on the list of books we've done sometimes to remember if it was one or not. I used to not have that problem, but now 17 years in, and sometimes doing, I mean, sometimes most of the time now doing 2 different books a month. Yeah, I'll look, but I think we did Arcadia. I know I read it, but I think we did it for Books and Bars. Yeah, no, I love stuff about, everyone likes to watch like true crime shows. Well, I mean, a lot of people do. And I kind of like, why does everyone want to watch stuff about murders and stuff? But I'm a sucker for stuff about cults. Oh, yeah. I mean, I just watched Murder Among the Mormons. Oh, so fun. You want to talk about a psychopath? Wow. There's a hidden psychopath in that one. Watch to the end and find out. All right, Lisa's got her hand up. Lisa?
Hi, it's Andrew. I've been listening the last 25 minutes or so, but if I repeat anything anyone has said before, please accept my apologies. I read this book two ways, I liked it okay. And it wasn't, I didn't feel bad about reading it. I didn't feel like it was something that would have driven me crazy if I had missed it. But as a horror novel, as something that would scare me, this fell completely flat. I didn't feel like it was something that was very believable in terms of whether or not it was likely that ordinary people would end up doing these kind of awful things, even if pushed to with their children. But I did like it as a thriller, like and the reason for that, I think horror movies or things that are supposed to be really scary, you have to be able to really put yourself in that position and feel like this is really likely to happen to you. Whereas thrillers are often kind of off the charts fun. I thought of the movie Speed, at the Keanu Reeves one, where fixes up the bus, and it's and I really enjoyed that movie. But it was very improbable. I was never worried about getting on a bus though. After that, like, oh no, someone could totally rig up this bus, or even the domestic terrorism aspect of it. And that's where I think the book maybe excelled, was it had that kind of movie pacing. The characters were interesting enough that you kind of want to know what happened to them and everything like that. But it never made me. It never kind of spooked me out or anything like that. So I'd say it depends on which way you were intending for that to be read, on whether or not you enjoyed it or not. If you're willing to kind of suspend disbelief and read it for the action thriller kind of thing that I think it was meant to be, you probably enjoyed it. If you were looking for some kind of probability or the thing is on horror movies, or on horror books, it's so often they depend on something supernatural. Because it's like they ask you, it's like you have to suspend belief in order to even read this, because it's got some supernatural thing. And so, like when you walk out in the dark, and it does feel spooky, like something supernatural really could happen. You read it or something like that. It's like, yeah, oh, that's really spooky, because it's like, you have to suspend disbelief in order to do it. As soon as you get into the real world, where you kind of expect, you have to expect people to do these abnormal things, it just kind of loses its scare value from my standpoint. But anyway, I didn't think it was that bad. I wasn't disappointed that I read it. It was enjoyable enough.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, if you notice, for at least until that break, when I went into the poll, I was trying to run tonight's meeting at the breakneck speed of the book, and I was being really fast and forceful. And I want to get back to that. I do want to get back to that. I also, I was in a meeting. I was in a video call the other day, and I felt like what it must be like for you guys when you feel like Books and Bars is going too long. And so I turned to my wife and we were like muting and like saying, and she's like, you know, we're like, get this over with. Like we're, yeah, but we weren't doing that because you'd be able to see that in the video, but we're looking at each other and like we'd mute and then we'd say to each other, like, I can't believe they're still talking about this, you know, and like, we're like moving our lips and I said, you know what, if I'm taking anything away from this, I want to value everyone at Books and Bars time. And maybe some of our Zooms are too long. And I won't just try to, you know, squeeze it out of there and make everybody talk and we can get them done a little bit faster. So in that spirit, I still want to hear from all of you. If you want to talk, but I'm not going to force you to, and I'm not going to make this go any longer than it has to. Angela, talk to us.
Someone mentioned the commune, maybe it was you, and the thought on the commune, and then it instantly made me go back to the cruise ship part where I'm like, children killed another child. And I'm still trying to understand, like, I get the jealousy and the anger, but that was another thing that was more, for me, that was a little bit more unrealistic than anything else. Again, I suspend reality when reading this stuff, but I was like, they had the forethought at that age to lure another child somewhere, or even to take the naked picture of the neighbor girl. Seriously, what is wrong with them?
Well, a lot's wrong with them. I mean, they were sociopaths. I mean, right? I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I can play one for an hour, you know, every 2 weeks. But yes, there was a lot wrong with them. Yeah, they were deeply disturbed. And I think, you know, going back and showing all that was to lay the groundwork for, because who would do this now? You know, like who would really set this up and have all of these children being kidnapped and all of these parents doing this and it's like, oh, you have to be someone that is like, you know, it's like going back and showing how the serial killer tortured animals, you know, growing up, that kind of a thing. I mean, you know, it's just like, oh, they'll do anything, you know, like they've been this evil for this long. But yeah, I thought that was almost like over the top, maybe also sort of comical. And again, I don't know if I was supposed to laugh, but I was like, oh, okay, we're going there. Like, this is like a really big bad, this person. Kevin Mattson, talk to us.
Right. Well, hey there, Jeff.
How you doing?
Yeah, good. I wasn't sure if I was going to comment on this or not. I was just happy to be back and say hi and stuff. But I did like this book. I thought it was similar to Angela said. I thought it was sort of suspension of reality it moved along. It was an action thriller. It was fine. It's like, yeah, somebody said Speed, somebody else in the chat or something, you know. Watching Speed is great entertainment. This was a fine, easy, good read. But there's no shot this happens in real life. There's just no, I mean, like, and that's okay. That doesn't mean it was bad. I also wanted to touch on what you said, which is if the conversation runs long or short, you know, on Zoom, if it's running long, people can just log out and leave, you know, that's okay, right? I mean, we can talk as long as we want. We can talk about whatever else pops up in conversation. So I don't mind I don't think you need to keep it brief, Jeff, or dial it back. I think it's just right, whatever fits. So.
Fair enough. I appreciate that. I see Will's got his hand back up. Talk to us, Will.
Yeah, circling back to that commune and suspension of disbelief, I found it weird that these kids throughout their childhood popped up in two different places and it didn't like alert suspicions of authorities. Like, I feel like you can't go on a criminal rampage at a commune and then you're like the children of your baby mother just happen to show up and like that doesn't ask questions. And then they like later murdered their father and just ended up with grandpa and kind of resumed new identities. And like, regardless of all of that, I was just like, how did this woman get into the FBI? Like, wouldn't have they looked into her background at least a little bit?
Yeah, actually, that's one of the funnier parts. I was like, wow, yeah, you're in the FBI after having done all of this. Yeah, that was pretty amazing. I see. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else on the commune? Anyone else on favorite characters? Carolyn, anything from the chat? Allie's got her hand up. Let's go to Allie.
Well, that was just amazing, Will, because I didn't even give that a second thought, but it's really making me laugh. Like, yeah, FBI, I mean, there's like things that you have to do. What the hell? That's so silly.
There's things you have to do.
There's things you have to do,
yeah.
and it seems like those are pretty egregious crimes and things that might come up in a thorough background check. But that made me laugh. Thank you for that, Will.
All right, I'm gonna go to Maura before I go back to Lisa and Andrew. Maura.
Yeah, I too wasn't sure if I was going to comment because I was like, it was just a stupid book and I had a nice day like laying in bed listening to it. Only 1.25 speed, but it was like at the end I was like, well, why not? Like let's throw it all in. Like, of course they've murdered people. Of course she's in the FBI. Like it felt like I want to see drag queens like do this. I would love to have it turn into like some like B like trashy horror kind of like gore movie with drag, like a John Waters kind of thing. But yeah,
like Showgirls almost. Like it's
Yeah.
so campy over the top. Yeah.
ridiculous. But yeah, I thought that like really struck me that like thinking about it now, and I love to like humble brag how I work in addictions and in mental health. And even with the I mean, I worked at a VA methadone clinic, and even then I was like, yeah, why not? Yeah. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, Mara, any other book you would be tearing apart. But I was like, bring on this stupid. It's so much fun.
Awesome. Well, you know what? I feel like, are you not entertained? Like I could just be, a Roman emperor and bread and circuits, people. This is what we get during COVID. All right, Lisa and Andrew, talk to us.
One thing that this did get me to do was do a little research on ransom and just how prevalent it was and things like that. And in this country, it's not very prevalent. In other countries, ransom is very prevalent. In fact, I work for a specialty insurer, and one of the things specialty insurers sell is ransom insurance from the world, in particular for executives or people who travel abroad. In India, it's a real problem, things like that. And I looked for victim replacement, schemes. Very few, although in Mexico, there was some kind of victim replacement type of scheme that was going on, and the key aspect there was that no one would report it to the police because everyone thought the police were in on it in the first place. So like it was like the police that were really that were involved in the scam, in the organized crime. And one interesting thing is that we read a book about ransom called An Untamed State. In this one, it was the one where the lady was kidnapped in Haiti.
Yep.
And that book was truly horrific. I mean,
Yes.
that was a horrifying book. And in this case, it was very much the thriller aspect of the ransom, and that thing, as opposed to the horror that the victims potentially feel and all that sort of thing. It was an interesting take, and I remember that being a pretty controversial book too, because it was so there was a lot of people all over the place on that particular book. But from a scare value or from a likelihood of happening, An Untamed State, as awful as that, off the charts awful as that book was probably a much more likely reflection of something that would happen in a ransom type case than this was. So it's not improbable that ransom happens. It's actually a fairly common thing. I think it's depending on amateurs to perpetuate your your ransom demands is probably the thing that really stands out as not being very likely to happen. But ransom demands and things like that is a very real problem in the world that people have to deal with. So.
Yeah, you're talking about Roxanne Gay, Untamed State. Yes, we discussed that one, and that was pretty horrific and a much more gritty. I mean, we really were in, in the head of the woman who was kidnapped and everything that she was going through. It was horrible. Yeah, well, the author, Adrian McKinty, is, he's not from here. So maybe he does have a different perspective on, kidnap, ransom sort of scenarios. And you're saying how it's a more prevalent thing in Europe or internationally than it is here. I mean, some parents, they probably would be like, yeah, go ahead, have my kid. Just go ahead, take him. Yeah, no, that's good. Bring him back, he's going to drive you nuts anyway. So, I know you'll return him. There's another story is, where the guy ends up just like, I got to get rid of this kid because the kid's like torturing me, like Home Alone kind of thing. Lisa, did you have something else you were leaning in with? No? Okay. Anyone else? I see Pete's hand is back up. I'll talk to Pete.
Yeah, just real quick. Is there any evidence that the author knows any women?
I think he's married and has children. So
I think he's married to a woman. To them.
Pete, this is Rebecca. I'm breaking in here. I actually kind of resent you saying that because I liked it and I'm a woman, and so my opinion counts. And I don't want to be thought of as someone who can't appreciate, So anyway, I don't mean to be controversial, and I know you're joking for the most part, but I would not say that the women characters were the worst thing about this book.
Okay.
Okay, I kind of break in on that then too, because Kaylee, the young girl that gets kidnapped, she was awesome. She was an awesome character, and she was very, very strong and a good female character. She was creative. She thought about finding the thing underneath the tool underneath to try and get the guy down to attack him. And so yeah, you look at it differently, but it's like that strong female characters, the sex scenes and crap and all that was bad, but the female characters themselves came off as pretty strong. So
thanks, Lisa. Maura's got her hand up
without getting taken down. Way to go, Pete.
Maura, go for it.
Cara here.
I think that the men were just as unbelievable. So it's like one thing if the men are written in a way where it's like, okay, you understand that experience, but the ex-husband, who was that guy? That guy is unrealistic, this bumbling idiot that everyone's in love with, even his ex-wife, who he supposedly left after she got cancer and then is just randomly there. I think the men were just as silly, and that's why I'm usually very sensitive to that. But kind of to Rebecca's point, it's well, why not feature some badass strong women in this cast of just idiots?
Anyone else want to jump in? I like the jump in right now. This is kind of fun. In the spirit of the book, jump in.
Well, in Pete's defense, I've been bitching about the characters, for the last week. Why would she say that about her ex-husband? He's a jerk, and but you're right, Pete. And well, actually all of you, but the men were also not drawn realistically. I mean, we're not looking at any three-dimensional characters here. I mean, it's pretty two-dimensional.
You have some fun buddies running behind you.
Except Stuart.
No, Stuart was two-dimensional too. He was good at magic, and handcuffs.
This leads me to what we've just experienced the last couple minutes was one of my other ideas was to try maybe a somewhat less controlled version of Books and Bars. It could be chaotic, but where you don't have to wait your turn to raise your hand, but you're kind of just jumping in if you have something to say that really relates to what we just heard. And it might be fun to have okay, this is the part of the night where you can do that. And it's just 5 or 10 minutes of that sort of thing. So this is it right now. Let's try it. We already started it. Maybe, you know, I'll say something that's so crazy that you have to jump in and comment on, or someone else can.
Well, I love the takedown. You know, it's like, all right, let's go for it. And then and actually in our home, you can also see the dogs are flying into my area. And in a minute, you'll see them go behind the wall to Pete's area. So that's pretty exciting. You know, in a COVID kind of way.
So jumping into this, as we're doing jump in, it is interesting to see people in settings like their own homes or their own background. Like that is one thing that the Zoom world has made very different. Seeing people in a controlled setting like books and bars or whatever in real live events is more like you know, it's very different, and it's kind of cool. I mean, so yeah, to see someone's dog walk by, or to see, you know, their kids interrupt their you know, whatever, and it's kind of fun. It adds a little bit of a more personal element to things, even in a big group, even in a group of 30 or 40 whatever people. So yeah, you know, there's something to it.
Yeah, I've definitely enjoyed it. I like when I see, you know, you could see people's bookshelves or something like that, or wherever people decide that, you know, or they, you know, for whatever reason, this is where they have to do their Zooms, and yeah, you get a little peek into that, and then some people hide it with a virtual and whatever, and that's fine. I mean, like I intentionally think about like what's behind me and how much light is on it. So I have like a Books and Bars poster, and there's another Books and Bars thing there, and there's a Books and Bars thing here, and there's an El Jefe thing, and you know, you probably can't even make it out, but this is curated behind here, you know, but it's a foosball table that I'm just setting stuff on top of, because I'm like up in the game room kind of thing. So it's like, you know, I just, yeah.
Are you good at foosball? Do you win? Do you beat your kids? Are you like a
pro?
pro?
I wish we played it more. No, my wife is really good at it. We haven't. Yeah, it's been a while since we've used it more for than me just putting stuff on top of it. Unfortunately, no. It's hard to get them to do games that aren't video games. I mean, we've been playing the card game Coup, which is really fun. And we've also played Bang, the dice game. Those are some non-video games that we play as a family lately that we like. But no, I'd like to get more foosball going on. Otherwise, it's just something for me to set more books on and stuff like that. I thought about putting a treadmill there instead or something, but yeah, it's getting too cluttered up here. So, but yeah, anyone else want to talk about their background or whatever? When I watch some things, there are other people's dogs, or like shows with dogs. It drives my dog nuts, and it's like, you can't, like, we're watching Afterlife with Ricky Gervais right now, and there's a German Shepherd that's a major character in the show, and it gets a lot of screen time, and it drives Cosmo nuts. He thinks, you know, and I think now when he sees Ricky Gervais, he knows he's going to be with that dog, and he starts going off on him just before the dog's even there. So yeah, Cosmo doesn't like Ricky Gervais either, but I mean, hey, I think he's fine. It's a good show, Afterlife. Recommend it. All right, who else wants to jump in? Show us their background.
Jump in. I just want to shout out to Rebecca. I really like diverse opinions, so thank you. Like,
no problem, Pete.
Yeah, I'm happy to be wrong. That's okay.
Yeah, and I hope no one got scared, like mom and dad are fighting or anything like that. I think it was fine, and I've seen much more heated things in person in Books and Bars, and hopefully we can all just understand, you know, we're talking about a book and an author. We're not talking about how we feel about each other necessarily, and it's totally fine. And I love when we have different opinions, and I love that we had a wide variety of them tonight on this book. And
I think this is great. It's a perfect time of day if you're on the West Coast, and just relaxing, something totally different than hospital and patients. And if people are missing from here next week, we can just look for ransoms and see what it is to buy them back.
That's right. And thanks, Todd. I appreciate that you take time out of your schedule on a different time zone and make it work. And I'm glad you're getting something from it. Thanks for giving me a segue to, next time in 2 weeks, we're reading a very different book that I think you will enjoy. It's called The Cold Millions by Jess Walter. In the past, we've read Beautiful Ruins by Jess Walter, and actually other ones by him. It'll come to me in a second. It was like many, many years ago. The Brief Lives of Poets or so. Anyway, we've read Jess Walter, and I
The
like
Zero.
a beautiful,
Did we read the
beautiful.
Zero? Did we
The
read
Zero, actually, we didn't read for Books and Bars, but that is a
Was
good
it
one.
Financial Lives of
The
Poets?
Financial Lives of Poets. There you go. The Financial Lives of Poets. Beautiful Ruins is one of my favorites that we've done. We actually have done it at 2 different times over the course of Books and Bars in different venues. But Jess Walter's latest, The Cold Millions. And I have a suggested beverage for it that I posted. I will post it again. It seems like it would be it's a Gold Rush type of drink. And yeah, I think you really get into this one. It'll make for a really good discussion. So
It's
check
an
it out.
interesting one.
Yeah, it's on the 24th, and I put the invite in the chat, and I will of course share it again on all the places. Anyone have anything else? Any other things you're wondering about? Doesn't have to be about the book before we go. I don't want to force it, but
Just out of curiosity, how do you go about selecting which books you're going to do?
That is the toughest part, and as you can see, on a time where if it's a book that it's not, it doesn't end up being as well liked, I feel personal responsibility.
Even though I thought this one sucked, it still is a book I never would have read, and each of the last 3 are books I never would have read, and I have to say you're on the positive side of enjoyment. So it's
well, thanks, Todd. I'll try to explain. So it's actually one of the toughest parts, and some of the people here tonight know because I talk to them offline about these things, and I share very long lists that I make based on reviews, based on time of year, based on who we haven't read before. I try to do a major percentage, about 75% of what we read is current literary fiction in paperback. So it's a new paperback, and it's like it's in that literary fiction section. So there's maybe something discussion worthy about it. That's what I'm looking for. Something that isn't necessarily that we're not just going to read fun thrillers or romps or horror. That there is something maybe that there's a topic here. There's something to talk about, and so I look for that.
No Faust?
Not yet. Not yet. I tried it. So 75% of it is going to be like, it's a brand new paperback. That said, with Zoom, I have moved more towards hardcovers even. And I've been able to pick up even more current books because I feel like I was very beholden to, I wanted to support the local bookstores and also help people with their budget and stuff and just have paperbacks. But more and more people are doing stuff digitally or getting it from elsewhere, the library, or they told me flat out that they were okay with me doing more current release hardcovers and not waiting for the paperback on some. So I look at the reviews. I might read a sample chapter. I know certain authors that I haven't read yet that I want to read, or authors that I have read that I love that I know we've discussed here and liked. And then I talk to a lot of members. I will make a long list. I share it with them and they vote on them. And, as those lists become shorter, as like, if no one seems to want to read this one, I'm not going to force it. And I kind of, popular vote on a lot of those. And then there's certain ones where I just know this is a Books and Bars book. It feels right. And you guys might not have voted for it or picked it, but trust me, you're going to, it's worth it. My favorite thing to hear is I never would have read this, but I'm glad I did. At least you said I never would have read this about some Todd. Hopefully I'll get more that you're glad you read. And then my other thing is, even if you're not glad you read the book, as long as you enjoyed the 75 minutes or so that you spent with us and maybe came away with a different perspective, and had a good time. And I am erring on the side of something that is, ultimately, this is supposed to be fun and entertaining. And I don't want to come across as like a TA or, some kind of, I'm just trying to teach a lesson. These are not my favorite books. I'm usually reading them with you for the first time. I may have read it a couple months in advance and I need to be refreshed on it. But for the most part, I'm trying to like, hey, I never read this either, but it looks like it'd be good for us. Let's read it. It by no means are like, I've read all of these and these are what we should read. In fact, I want to hear from you guys, and I'm trying to pick more diverse authors, and I'm trying to branch out. So I love the suggestions, and I put them on the list, and then I put them in. Now I've been using this bookshop.org, and I put them in a list on there of like, here's ones we're definitely doing, and then here's ones I'm thinking about. And I look and I can see which ones you guys are buying. And if more people start buying certain ones, and I'm like, oh, people seem like they want to read this one, maybe we should. But I ask you on Facebook, I ask you on Twitter, I ask in the newsletter, people can email me, yeah, I'm not hiding. I'm easy to find. So come to me directly with anything. If you don't want to do it in here, send me book ideas, and then I'll put it on the list and bring it to all of us, and we vote on it and come back. So I do have our books only selected through Cinco de Mayo. So that is Mexican Gothic. And then the reason I'm holding is because there's that slight chance of like a late May, early June being an in-person, and I don't want to call that book yet until I know the lay of the land. Am I going to be standing outside with a bunch of you? That might change what's am I going to do the same book on Zoom? And we'll see. So, but I got to get picking on June, July, and August soon, because normally I like to give you guys a whole season in advance, like 4 books out that you can pick. I see Lisa and Andrew have their hand up. This is the jump in time. You guys could have just jumped in, but go for it.
Oh, I see. It's the jump in time. I just wanted to say that one of the nice things about reading a book that is not as totally enjoyable with a Books and Bars group is that I know that other people are suffering in the same way that I am. When it's like, I'm like, or I'll be like, oh man, this is really going to tick this and that. Pete's going to hate this.
Well,
it is. It's kind of, I end up enjoying the book a little bit more because I'm thinking more about the collective we that might be looking at this book as I'm reading it, as opposed to some book I just picked up and I was like, oh, that was a terrible mistake. Not only am I not enjoying this, but it was a complete waste of time.
Yeah, that's the incentive of the book club, right? I mean, I think it's a lot easier for someone to drop a book they're just reading themselves, but if you're being held accountable by whatever it is, your group of 4, 5, 25, 50 people are hoping that you are going to read it with them and then share your opinions and perspectives, then you end up at least finishing it, and letting us know.
And some of the books have gotten better as they go along. I mean,
and I do like to have a better average though. But doing 2 books a month, I am pretty proud of, if you look at our list, and back to you, Todd, or anyone else that hasn't been with us quite as long. If you go to booksandbars.com and click on books, we list everything we've done for 17 years. Most of those I think are pretty good. There's some clunkers in there. There's some ones that that weren't as good as others that I wouldn't look at again, and authors I wouldn't go back to. But I think our batting average is pretty good. So I am concerned about ones that lower it. But like tonight, I don't feel like I have I wouldn't say that this was okay. Like there were fewer people speaking about Hotel New Hampshire, but most of those people did not like the Hotel New Hampshire. Tonight, there was quite a mix. People really did like this book, and then other people thought it was, maybe kind of trashy or at least entertaining.
Well, I will say they brought the people who liked it. Yeah, you brought a refreshing perspective that I was not thinking of. So it certainly helped in that regard and left it with a different flavor. Didn't increase the stars for me, but no regrets. And again, it's a book I wouldn't have read otherwise, and I don't regret reading it.
Okay, so go on. Sorry, Kevin.
Oh no.
Well, so I was going to say, about picking books and if they're not popular. I've been in a book club with Lisa Kloster and Gretchen for 18 years, and I'm proud to say I've picked one of the worst books. Lisa, do you remember what book that was? Can you tell me which one that was? So you're muted.
Lisa, you're muted.
It was Prague. It was Prague. It was Prague. I talk about it all the time. And like anytime it's a reference to a bad book, it's like, oh, is it a Prague? I mean, like, Jeff, I liked the book, but everyone hated it. Gretchen hated the font.
I mean, she hated everything about this book.
Yeah, that's when you really don't like it, and you're trying to find just how can I really say I don't like something. I'm going to pick on the font. Andrew Phillips, we video chatted with him. We read The Tragedy of Arthur by Arthur Phillips, which I thought was quite good. It was connected to Shakespeare, and he had his parents were in the audience. He was in New York, and his parents were in the Bryant Lake Bowl Theater. And we like interviewed them and stuff. And actually, I'll share some clips. It's on YouTube. We have a short clip of that time with him. But what did you? So Prague was not good though for you guys, huh? Except for it wasn't good for Lisa.
Oh gosh, no. I liked the book, but they hated it. So I mean, what are you gonna do? We started out voting like which book should we pick, and then it was a disaster. So we just said we're gonna announce the book. Everyone gets a month. That's it. So some are stinkers.
That's good to hear, Carolyn.
I never expect everyone to like a book or like a book in the same way that I do, and I like the being exposed to the different opinions. Sometimes people are just flat out wrong, but I still like hearing it.
I think I used to take it maybe a bit more personally, or feel like I had to pick something that a majority really liked. But I have really learned that some of our better conversations have been, when there's some disagreeing. And in some ways, maybe it's not always best to look for, I do look at, what the scores are, what the ratings are. And like sometimes the best reviewed books or the best reviewed books on Goodreads that everyone agrees on aren't necessarily the ones that we're all gonna be like, this was great to talk about. So I don't know, but I mean, I use Goodreads, and I use Bookshops they do aggregate reviews, and they show like whether it's got rave reviews or mixed reviews, and then you can read individual reviews and stuff. I see Donna has shared a PDF of our book list. Donna, is this something that you is this an updated? Can you speak to this, Donna? Thank you for sharing it.
I just there's kind of a wonky format on the book list that's online, and so I put them all into just a Word document and saved it as a PDF, just because every once in a while I'm trying to remember too, what we read and when and all that, and people ask me, well, now what has Books and Bars read? And so I just have a PDF, I just update it when you announce books and send it out.
That's amazing, Donna. Thank you for sharing.
That's amazing. And Donna, what was your first Books and Bars book?
Oh my
gosh. And the month.
I'd have to look, but I think it was in 2011. Shoot.
I'm looking right now. I'll try to, was it?
Oh, let's see. Okay. It might have been Room or, no, I think it was A Visit from the Goon Squad.
Oh, I love it.
Which I loved so much, and then recommended it to another book club, and half of them liked it and half of them just hated it. So, but it is one of those books that we still remember as one that we argued about. And I think, as you were saying and others were saying, it makes one of the more fun discussions when there's a difference of opinion, because I think both sides come away seeing some different look at it, but not necessarily changing their minds, but just seeing a different perspective. So
I'll jump in now to plug the Haters Club. I think I'm the unofficial president, but I feel so validated that I'm bringing joy and excitement to Books and Bars. So come on over.
Yeah, Maura, I wish if you were with us back in the day, that there was a guy but this hater, the original hater, ended up becoming a lover, and so much of a lover that then he ended up getting married and having a kid and no longer being a part of Books and Bars. But we're still friends, and he still comments every once in a while. But now he likes everything. There's so much love in his life that he could no longer hate. So Maura, maybe someday. Yeah, and then you'll pass the torch to someone else. But yeah, no, it's great when Yeah, I don't mind it as much anymore. Although like I said, I do feel I want to have a good, I don't want it to be like people look at our list and be like, oh, they read, bad books. I don't want to be part of that. So,
I think so. To jump into this, I think that one thing. So the chain I thought was pretty light. I mean, a lot of people talking about this book compared to Hotel New Hampshire. They're clearly Hotel New Hampshire's got deep dives into subjects that are pretty heavy, and there's room for that in a real kind of a literary sense. But this one, I felt like the chain. Not, I mean, we can wrap this up too. I know you said you don't want to run long, but but like I could recommend this book to almost anybody. It's just an action thriller. It's like somebody said watching Speed or something. This is a fine book to read. It's not, there aren't words in there like, that people have to look up or anything. It's a great pick. It was nice to mix it up, and I think you're making a lot of good picks, and they don't have to all be hits. They don't have to, they fit differently with different people.
Thank you. Donna, I gotta say, I'm looking at your list though, and you forgot, you're missing one of our April books.
Yeah, I am. What is it?
April 21st. You know what it is?
No.
I gotta look it up. I have so many books right now. What are we doing for April? I gotta look it up.
I couldn't find it anywhere listed. So.
Leave the World Behind.
Leave the World
right?
Behind.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's on the website.
Leave
and it's on
the
Zoom.
World Behind.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Leave the World Behind by
Yes. Okay, perfect. I'll add that in. Thanks.
Excellent.
That's 421, and then 55 is Mexican Gothic. Yep. So
okay, great.
I am in the middle of Mexican Gothic right now, and I've read the others, and I can tell you that the Cold Millions. Yep, you're gonna enjoy that. That'll be a good discussion. Devolution, a firsthand account of the Rainier Sasquatch Massacre, is a fun one, and you might think it's not as deep, but I'll tell you something. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think it's pretty great. And it's got some stuff that we haven't read in a while. Some good action in it, and some gore too. I mean, if you've read Max Brooks, he's Mel Brooks' son. He wrote World War Z, so it's similar to that in a way, but it's about Sasquatch. And Mexican Gothic, oh boy, I don't know. I'm about 40% through, and I don't know what to think so far, but I'm glad we're doing it. So it'll be interesting to talk about.
Hey, Jeff, I'll just jump in. I just want to thank you, I'm sure on behalf of everyone, for persevering. This has been like a year since we've had a live thing. So really nice job by you on dealing with, keeping this group together. It's something that over the last year, Lisa and I really looked forward to seeing people on Zoom and all that. And I wasn't sure how it was going to work at the beginning, but you've done a really nice job. So thanks to you.
Well, isn't it
thanks so
actually
much.
like the 1-year anniversary of the last time?
Yeah, I
Yes,
just put it on Facebook that the last social outing we had was at Moon Palace.
We talked about N.K. Jemisin. It was at Moon Palace, and I remember I had a mask, and I was like, "Do you want me to wear it?" And people were like, "No." Like, and it was because we weren't quite at that point yet. Yeah, it was before the actual lockdown, and then the next event, had to be canceled. It was going to be at Urban Growler, and then we immediately threw up, let's try this on Zoom. And like the first Zoom video, it was before I had the account, and if you remember, like you only got 40 minutes, and it would shut it off. But they kept allowing people to go longer, and we were like, "Oh, they'll be fine. There's no way it's going to cut off," and it cut off like right in the middle. And then I came back like a couple minutes later, just laughing. We lost some people. A bunch of people were able to get back in, but it's like, of course that happens. Like and then I was like, all right, I got to make sure I have a professional account when I do this. So yeah,
I want to jump in here real quick and just say what I've liked about this year on Zoom is I feel like I know the other Books and Bars folks a lot better than I ever did from attending 10 years in person. I just never had the opportunity to see their faces so clearly, see their names underneath, hear them call out and talk individually. So for me, the format has been at least as good an experience as in person. I will go back to in person happily, but I look forward to those opportunities when we can do it online still.
I gotta tell you, Rebecca, I had a very similar thought the other day, and it's gonna be really amazing when I do get to see you all again that have been, there's been about 25 or so of you who have been really, really consistent regulars, and I really appreciate it. And I too feel that, I mean, you were people that I saw once a month at least for a while now, but I feel like I do, it's weird because I haven't seen you in person in a year, but I feel like I have gotten to know a lot of you a lot better over the last year from doing it this way. So much so that it's like, when I see you in person, it's gonna be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, you know what I mean? It's gonna be great. It's gonna be incredible. Like the power in that room or that patio or wherever we are is gonna be incredible when we all are back together in the same room talking again. I mean, I think the meetings are gonna go long. They're going to be, we're going to definitely want to be there for the social part beforehand, and then stick around for
maybe the opportunity is to find an outdoor place for you that also has a smart connection. So you can do a combination of the online and live.
Yeah, I'll talk to Pete about it offline and see.
We're on it. But
yeah,
remember, it's not about whether it's live or not. It's about the chain.
The chain, yeah.
While you're all at Books and Bars, your kids are going to be grabbed for ransom. So it's a great way to distract you while I make the real money. All right, guys, it's been awesome. You know what? I wanted to keep it tighter and shorter, but I actually really loved like this last half hour where we were just talking about other stuff. And
it's the Minnesota goodbye. It was like
great. No, this is great. Yeah,
totally. And I could just say that like that is one thing I miss so much. I'm such a pokey goodbye. My husband's always like, "Are you kidding me right now?" I'm like, "But okay, we'll go." And then like a half hour. I love it. So this.
Well, the other thing about the Minnesota goodbye is there's oftentimes other locations. Have you done the, like, I say goodbye to you at the door, but then I walk you to your car.
Walk to the car.
Say goodbye outside, and it's like the very cold outside Minnesota goodbye after you've already said goodbye.
You're not wearing a coat.
Yeah, and you're not wearing a coat for sure. Yeah, you just walk the person out. Anyone not from Minnesota, if you're ever with a Minnesotan and you get the Minnesota goodbye, it's a true treat.
You've got to plan at least like a half hour to 45 minutes extra just for the goodbye.
we've all done it now on Zoom here. This is the half hour Minnesota goodbye. This is great. I look forward to really not editing this one that much and just putting this up on YouTube so people can see how we do it. And thank you guys so much. I had a blast tonight.
Thank you, Jeff.
And I really hope to see you guys in a couple weeks for the Cold Millions. And thanks for everything. This was awesome. So good night, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
See you soon.
Bye. See you.